Hi everyone, it's Catherine here from Ink Finger Cat, and I decided to take some messy jelly prints. These are actually the bits where you've put something down and then this is the edges. That's what these pieces are. But you can use them because you can use them to die cut things like these silhouette dies. These are the Tim Holtz Wildflowers #1. He's done quite a few of these kinds of sets, so you could absolutely replace it with any other kind of silhouette die. But they just make really, really pretty little painty flowers that are really organic because you've not chosen specifically to paint in a particular area. And it's a good way of using up those kind of painty scraps that have been left over from a jelly printing session. So I thought I'd stick the video on and show you what I was doing. So I started off with those two pieces, and then I've got some really scrap, awful cardstock that I've no idea where it's come from, but I was tidying out the desk the other day and found it, so I'm starting to use it. It's a bit fluffy and a bit textured, but it's absolutely fine for stacking your die cuts up and making them less flimsy. Because I will say that those jelly print pieces were on kind of copier paper. They're not on cardstock, they were on copier paper. But with the paint on them, they already become a little bit more sturdy, but obviously they're still flimsy and thin. So I'm stacking them up to make sure they've got a little bit of strength. So some of them get 2, some of them get 3. But yeah, I die cut them over and over again from those scraps of white cardstock before I start gluing them together. So I'm going to speed this up quite a bit because it's a bit fiddly. You can still see what I'm doing even at this speed, but it's a bit fiddly. It takes a bit of a while. In addition, my glue thing clogs and I realise there's no glue in it, so I have to do a bit of filling of that. And I just kept the video running because you know what? I was having a little whale of a time just playing and not really concentrating on anything I was doing, really. I was concentrating on exactly what I was doing. I wasn't thinking about anything else, so I was having a lovely time crafting. But you can see here, all I've done is just laid them up, stacked them up a little bit, put a little bit of glue on in between each layer. Sometimes, as I say, it's 2 layers, sometimes it's 3. And then I stick them underneath something heavy to dry. It does take a little while to do this, probably about 15 minutes in total to do all of the die cutting and all of the gluing, just because they are a little bit on the fiddlier side. If you went for a bolder image, which I think would still work, I mean, I think part of the beauty of these is that they are so delicate, but if you went for a bolder image, it would obviously take you less time, it would be less fiddly. Have a little clear up, and now I've decided, right, I am going to turn these into fairly clean and simple cards. Little note cards, and so I'm taking some white cardstock and I'm just cutting 4 panels. I'm going to make 4 cards, and I've decided I'm going to use stencils, so I have to go and find the stencils that I want to use, but I've also decided that I don't want to stencil the entire background, I just want to stencil a part of it. So again, off camera, because the die cutting machine is off to the right hand side. So there you go, there's the stencils I've chosen. I am die cutting from some very scrap postcards. Now these are the sorts of postcards that I run through the die cutting machine with a shim normally. And I'm using the stitch shapes, stitched framelets that are really old, Stampin' Up! Civics type dies in order to cut from those postcards. Then I'm laying my stencil over the top of that. Sometimes I'm using a bit of tape just to hold it in place because this one's quite a flimsy stencil. And then I'm just using a bit of ink to create a shape on those background panels. I'm not so concerned if they're not straight. It's fine because I'll cut them so that they're cut down so that they sit on the right part of the panel. I'm going to do a different design for each. This one I also went and inked the shape afterwards as well as just over the stencil. Then I changed from an oval to a circle, so I have to go and die cut another scrap postcard that I just keep over near the die cutting machine, and this time I'm going in with this. I love this kind of stencil. I think it's an All and Create one. Again, I did the shape as well because it wasn't much stenciling for that one. And this is also an All and Create stencil. And I love those circles. But I went in with the brown and then decided to add a little bit of I think it's Hello Honey, but actually it's kind of a brownie colour, brownie yellow. And again, just a little bit of the over the edges where to define that circle shape. So I'm going to choose which stems I want for which shape and which piece, and I changed my mind so that all except for one of them have just got the one flower on them. And now I'm deciding what I want to do, and I decide I'm going to go and find some cardstock. I chose Blackberry Bliss, which might seem a bit weird, but I just thought there were some purple tones within those die cuts that I thought would work. So created my card blanks, and now I'm deciding how straight do I want them to be, what size panel do I want. I'm still in my head not entirely sure that I'm going totally clean and simple, so I'm still deciding. So for the moment I am just doing them one at a time, trimming them, sorting out the size of the panel, and then sticking my little wildflower down. I'm checking it obviously up against that card blank that I've created to see that it looks right in terms of the framing. I think there's one of them that I just changed slightly at the end, and trim it down a little bit more. And again, just sticking something heavy on top. I use my acrylic block as my something heavy. This one, you see, I wasn't totally happy, so I went and stuck a little bit more off. Yeah, happy with it now. I really love this particular die cut. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just that it's got a little bit more about it, so it's absolutely perfect for the size. I wish there was a little bit more contrast between the one on the right hand side, but that's actually my favourite card. And obviously that's got the one in the middle with the green leaves in the stencil panel has got only the one sprig, and possibly I should have done two for that one, but you know, I still love them. I still think they look absolutely gorgeous at the end, all of them. I'm really happy with them. So at this point I'm umming and ahhing and deciding on sentiments. So I'm pulling a few sentiments out, having a look at the sizing of them and deciding that they weren't right. This one I decided was okay, which was this Just a Note. It's from a magazine stamping set. I think it was Creative Magazine. Quite an old one. I like the font on it. So I do stamp it 4 times. I mess up on cutting one of them, and so I automatically end up just with 3 that might work. So I then decide, actually, I'm just going to use the 2. And then I'm going to get another sentiment set out. Well, actually, this time I choose the Lawn Fawn, I think it's called Plain and Simple, but I'm not sure, stamp set. And I just choose a couple of sentiments out of that. So the first one is Miss You Already. You can probably guess who I'm going to send that card to. Yep, my daughter. And the other one, I'm going to go You're Awesome. May also get sent to my daughter at some point. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool. And this is 2 sentiments that you can, you know, you can make up your own phrases. Sorry about the beeping. That was the oven just telling me to go and sort out tea. So yeah, the Lawn Fawn, you can like make up your own little phrases. So there's a You're and there's the Awesome, and obviously there's other things that you could create that into. But I decided to go with You're Awesome. Now, I did feel like they needed edging, but I'm still trying to keep these as quite flat cards at this point. I say at this point, they do end up as quite flat cards. It's quite unusual for me. So instead, I went in with this black pen and I just edged each of the sentiments with the black pen. I did it onto that scrap cardstock just so that I didn't have to do as much cleaning up. That's my little sneaky trick, is use a bit of scrap and then you don't have to do as much cleaning up. And then I decided at this point, actually, I wanted to do just a little bit of splatter, just make it a little bit mucky. So I took my black soot, is distress ink, and a little bit of water and just did some very, very small amounts of splatter. I kept moving them off to keep them clean. And now it is time to start adding the sentiments. So on this one was the You're Awesome. This one is the Miss You Already. Now, because of the fact that this was going to go just slightly onto the flower, I did need to layer up a little bit of it so it would sit straight, otherwise it had gone a bit wonky at the end. I have to do the same on the Just the Note ones as well, because they're going to go over the stem, and because they're stacked, they do need just that little bit of support on either side, just so that it'll keep it flat and doesn't go sort of wonky, and it sort of forms a bridge over that little die cut. And the same for the final one. So there's only the first one that stays totally flat. Now this one, I did trim the sentiment down at this point. I realised it was going to need to be shorter. I'd already stuck the other one down, but I do end up trimming that as well. So just gluing these down, and now it is time to start adding them to the card blanks. So I do use my ATG for, I think, most of these, just to stick them down. I did add a teensy bit of glue over the edges of that one because it just needed that little bit of extra. This one, just simple with my ATG. I think the final two are also the ATG, but that last one I do end up, as I say, fiddling with the sentiment because it's just that little bit too wide for the card blank. It just hung over the edge too much, so I cut one side off. Of course I have to go in and put the black edge on, and then I go to stick it down, and then I realise that the other side is also going to be too long. So even though I've got the ATG on the back, that's the joy of a glass mat. It means that you can put it down even if you've got some adhesive on the back. So now I'm going to create the blanks for inside the cards, because the Blackberry Bliss is obviously a little bit dark for writing on. So I'm using my stencils just to coordinate the insides of each of the cards with what the stencil is on the front. I do choose to ink a different part of each of the insides, but you can see pretty much what I'm doing here, just making sure that they coordinate. And then that's pretty much me done. So I'm really happy with these clean and simple, slightly artsy, fun cards, using up those jelly print scraps, the things that you know you're not going to be able to use as an actual background because it's just far too crazy on a card for anybody to enjoy. But they make such pretty die cuts. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please do give it a like if you did. You know what? Put a thumbs down if you didn't. Fair enough. Each to their own. As Tim Holtz says, you do you. Please do drop me a comment below. What do you do with your jelly print scraps? Have you got any other ideas of what I should do with them? Because I have quite a lot. But please subscribe to see more. And until next time, goodbye.